as I'm looking at people answering, if you want to jump in at any point and introduce yourselves, feel free. But we have people from Lebanon, Hong Kong, Switzerland, New Zealand, Philippines, the UK, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Dubai. And as we're in this session, I'll keep promoting people to be a panelist. Don't be afraid of that. It just means that you can turn your video on and engage with us, but you won't be asked to present anything or anything you don't want to. But yeah, let's see if there are any more answers coming in. Okay, so we have a bunch of people from a bunch of places. Thank you for sharing and letting us know. In case you missed the Mentimeter, feel free to add it into the chat. Azadeh, thank you for joining us from Tehran. And Italy, Louise, hi. New Zealand, okay. It's awesome how we can all be so connected while staying so far away. So before we get into this content for today, I just want to share that throughout this week, all the learnings and webinars have been complimentary. You can also earn the ICF CCE Continuous Coaching Education Certificate with a minimum contribution of $20 US. All the fees collected will be redirected to CMA's We Care Social Foundation that uplifts underprivileged individuals in Pakistan. Okay, so let's get into what you and I have been waiting for and why we're all here. To listen to our guest speakers, Andrea and Azadeh, talk to us about making change come alive. Have you ever decided that you're going to do something, you made a list, set a bunch of action plans, only to be back at square one or the same place you thought started a few months later? I can see a few people nodding their heads. Yeah. I've been there too many a time. And at one point or another, we've all been there, right? And this is because, as Andy and Azadeh put it, there is more to deep, lasting change than a list of action items. So we are more than that. We are all complex, diverse human beings here today. So today's session will help us unpack the science behind making lasting change beyond a coaching session. And before I hand it over to our wonderful speakers, I'd like to take a minute to introduce both Azadeh and Andrea. They both have a lot in common, which makes my job as a host easy today. And while Azadeh is from Iran and Andrea is from Sri Lanka, they're both the directors of training for CMA in their respective locations. And they both share a knack for intentional curiosity. If you are a student joining the session today, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, seeing them facilitate learning labs. They are both experts at gently pushing past one's current way of thinking while providing us with a safety net to fall into if that ever gets uncomfortable or hard. Lena, I can see you nodding. Yeah. Yeah. So I think for Azadeh, this comes from her experience as a mindset transformational coach. And her work with clients is deeply rooted in the belief that every individual can bring out their unique abilities by cultivating a learner's mindset fueled by passion, purpose, and joy that can then seed sustainable and exponential growth in one's professional work and also personal. And then for Andy, this comes with her 17-year career in people development. Andrea's work spans with students, from students to C-level executives alike, and is rooted in the belief that individuals are resource and whole. Andy has a lovely, lovely way of creating space for individuals to then see themselves as resourceful and whole too. Having been Andy's mentee, I have firsthand experience of this. And she really allowed for me to develop my own thoughts and style in coaching, which was truly a gift to experience. And I'm so, so excited for all of you to hear them share today. So without talking anymore, I'll let Andy and Azadeh take it away.
Hi, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you from Sri Lanka. I'm Andrea, and you can call me Andy. I really like people calling me Andy. So celebrating the coaching week, I'm sure we've all been in many sessions, and it's an absolute honor for me to share this session with Azadeh. So it's been the third consecutive year that Azadeh and I are co-facilitating at the ICW coaching conference for CMA. So it is definitely an absolute pleasure and an honor. And Cecilia did co-host with us the last two sessions, and I'm fondly remembering Cecilia here as well. Yeah, so looking forward to share what we have with all of you. And just dipping into like what really made us talk about this topic. Like Mariam has already said, being in people development for many years, as I stepped into coaching, I kind of saw how change comes alive in the moment. I've experienced it as a client, and I've seen and had the joy of seeing it in my clients as well. And I'm sure all of you have had that experience. So hence the passion to really talk about the topic today, which is that change really comes alive in the coaching conversation. So with that, I'm just going to pass on to Azadeh to give us a quick intro.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and thank you, Mariam, for your beautiful, warm hosting. And I see we have a hand raised, so I just want to make sure that, Ross, can we support you with anything before we start? Please feel free to share your question with us. If you
I'm sorry, that was an accident. I'm so sorry. I didn't even know I'd done it. My apologies.
Where are you joining in from, Ross?
Oh, I'm from Australia, Newcastle, Australia. Thank you.
Wonderful. Lovely to have you here joining us. So warmest welcome to you all. Thank you for being here on the final day of celebrating the International Coaching Week. Yay, we did it. And I think there's a lot of learning that we all took from this amazing week. And so how has the week been for you? Anybody want to share before we start? Yes, it's been wonderful with lots of learning and what brings us all together. And I think what brings you here is what brings us here, Andrea and I, and Miriam as well, is our passion, our joy for this vocation, and for us wanting to continuously grow and learn more in order to be of better service for our clients. So the topic of today is actually one which is coming from a deep, deep appreciation from Andrea and I for the science behind what we do. We started off 3 years ago with an art aspect, saying that coaching is an art and that there is a whole inner journey that needs to take place. And over the years, we have been delving deeper. And this is what it is, I think, is that the more you go into this craft, the more you see, wow, how vast and beautiful is it, right? It's like we're just grazing the surface. So today we just want to, with an appreciation, bring to you two of the science aspects that we see is the science behind the transformative coaching. And we would love to tie that into our transformative framework as well with you. So without any further ado, I want to mention that today I'm joining you from Iran. I'm blessed to be here to visit my family for a few days. And with that, I'd like to start off with a video from my home country. And as you watch this video, we would love for you to hold a question in the back of your mind, and that is, what does the change process look like for you? Yeah, so what does it look like for you? And as you reflect on the change process, what does this video that you're going to watch tell us anything about the change process? So enjoy. Great. So that's a short video on how carpets, Iranian carpets are made. And it would be lovely if most of you could turn on your camera and engage with us. And we'd love for you to share with us, what does that tell us anything about the change process? Thank you, Louise. Go ahead, Tina.
I just thought it takes a lot of color. It takes a lot of people to help you. And with that color and people, you can actually make something beautiful.
Beautiful. It takes a lot of color and a lot of people indeed. You know, sometimes for one single carpet, it takes many, many years to make it. And it can go from, you know, it's maybe a lot of hands that are involved in making one single carpet. Indeed. Mick?
I like Tina's answer. That was awesome. Yeah, so the co-creation, I love that. What I was going to say is we're all made from raw materials, and through the right process, we can create something beautiful. So very similar to Tina, but the raw materials element, yeah.
Yes, indeed. We sometimes never realize how much raw material is involved in something like that, right? So yes, thank you so much, Mick. Thank you. Mick and Knock, I think your hand was raised. Did I catch it in the moment?
Yeah. Well done. Thank you, Azadeh. So for me, it really evokes patience and yeah, a process and craftsmanship, creativity, and a flow, being in the flow.
Wow, a lot of beautiful words, right? Mick, can you capture them for us? You have such a wonderful way. Yeah, so creativity, flow, and there's so many of these elements that we may not really be aware of that are woven in together. And basically, this is what we're trying to get to today, which is what Miriam kicked us off with, is that change is more than a series of actions. So how many of you have said, for example, after the COVID time, I want to get back to my healthy routine that I had, my lifestyle. My goal is clear. It's right in front of me. I know what's standing in my way. What is it that needs to happen, right? So yeah, sometimes it's very, very clear. However, there's so much involved. And what makes it so fascinating is that we are human beings. And there is so much that comprises the way we think, the way we see things, the way we act. So with that, I want to pass on to Andrea, who's going to bring us to the first concept and share with you the agenda for the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Azadeh. And yes, change. And isn't that such a beautiful way to kind of look at it through the carpets? So I'm going to kind of ask all of you maybe to do a little bit of charades with me. If you look, use your finger, your index finger. And if as many of you can come on camera, that would be really lovely. And just use your index finger to kind of represent change for me. Okay, so we're going to start now. Use your index finger and just use it to represent change for me. Okay, let's see what's happening. Okay. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Thank you. That's beautiful. Yeah. So sometimes, okay, so I think this takes me back to very early years of my corporate life when you kind of think that change is getting from point A to point B. And I know we've all been through that process to understand that, yes, we are human beings and we are all going through this beautiful change process. And like some of you have already shared, sometimes it can look messy. It can look painful, feel painful. And yes, it can be one step forward, two steps back. Or maybe like you said, so many other people involved in the process. So yes, change being this, and knowing that change is this, I think it makes it really important for us as coaches. Because when we understand that change and the change process is this beautiful, this multidimensional, our approach to coaching and how we really coach is impacted through that thinking. So I really like how you all chose to use your fingers to represent that. So today in our session, Azadeh and I are going to kind of take you into a little bit of the science. We're going to use two reference points, one being the Gestalt theory and the other being the biopsychosocial model. And we're going to use these two to help us to see how it all ties into the ACC framework in terms of creating awareness and really heightening that wisdom in our clients in a way that they're really able to walk out and make the changes that they want to live the change that they aspire to live. So with that, we're going to probably, so when I say Gestalt, I'm sure some of you probably already know what Gestalt theory is all about. So when we say Gestalt, what comes to your mind? Anyone? Maybe you can type it in the chat. Or maybe even speak out. What comes to your mind when we say Gestalt? Maybe Azadeh can give us the real meaning, the German meaning to Gestalt here. Yeah, so the concept of Gestalt is whole. The meaning of the word being whole. So I'm just going to share with you an image and let me know what you see here. What is it that you see here? Any thoughts? So I don't see the chat at the moment, Azadeh, maybe you can help me out. Okay, so we have a few coming up. Okay, lovely. A bike, a bicycle, beautiful. I'm sure all of you see a bike, and I'm sure none of you see the wheels, the pedal, the brakes, the seat, none of that. Obviously, we see the whole because we are all human beings. And this is a little bit of the concept of Gestalt. So we're going to show you a bit of Gestalt art here, and let's stretch your minds a little. So as I share the images, share with me what comes to your mind or what you can really see. Okay, so let's see what is it that comes up for you. And if my connection is breaking off by any chance, I'm just keeping you posted that Sri Lanka is having continuous power cuts. And if I am, Azadeh, just let me know, because I can feel I'm lagging a little bit. Okay. So what is it that you see? We can see 3 images. And if I ask you, what is it that you can see as you're watching this? Okay, so we have some thoughts, faces. So the first image we have, okay, so some of you see 2 faces. Anyone else that sees anything different? Okay, 2 persons looking at each other from Jay, the gorilla and the lioness. Oh yes, and we see the saxophonist. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so yes, we can all see, and we can see different things. So some of you said that you see the saxophonist, and some of you said that you can see the lady. So we're looking at the same image, but we tend to see different things. And I'm just wondering, as you are looking at this, what does this tell us about how our perceptions are formed and how that shapes our reality? So let's hear a few thoughts from the room. Anyone to share? Having looked at it. Maybe Mariam, you can give us a kickstart and then the others will join. I think you're on mute, Mariam. Yeah.
No, I am thinking.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I rushed the intro, so I'm telling myself pause a little bit more now.
Mick has his hand raised.
Yeah, go ahead, Mick.
I immediately think of a couple of things, actually, Andy. One is about the second and third loop thinking, and to be able to look at the same situation and encourage our clients to do so, to be able to lift themselves out of the situation and look back inside as a third party, almost like that bird's eye view. That was the first thing that jumped to mind. But there was something, I think maybe because there was 2 faces, and then there was the gorilla and the lion. Something about conflict jumped out at me as well, and the word empathy. And for us, not only for the client, and we do coach clients, we don't coach third parties, but encourage our client to take a second and third loop thinking, but also in a workplace situation or a family situation when there's conflict, for people to see the world through other people's eyes, and for them both to realize that they're right. So sometimes, people are looking at the identical thing. Ben tells a wonderful story about an arrow that stops in midair and is frozen in time, and everyone look at it from their angle, and what do you see? And everyone is right, and the world would be a better place if everyone did that. So that was the 2 things: the second and third loop thinking, and then empathy, particularly in conflict.
Beautiful, Mick. And I think, yes, the beauty of how perceptions are formed, and yes, to hold that space and to have empathy. And interesting, the second loop and the third loop learning. We will talk about that a little bit as we walk in as well. Thank you, Mick. So I hear Jay's typing saying it's our subjective experience. Any other thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Mariam.
I think when Mick said empathy, what connected for me is connection, because I think sometimes more than saying something or a response, it's that feeling of connectedness, and how you can have 2 very separate things be connected in just terms of black and white, or how we look at it. So that's what's coming up for me.
Lovely. So I can hear a little bit of the science and a lot of the art also coming in. And I think, yes, that's the beauty of the CMA framework, where we really blend in the art and the science. So why the Gestalt theory, and what makes that important for us in coaching? That's a little bit of what I'm going to share with you. And what I'm going to present to you in terms of a few laws around the Gestalt will help you to kind of understand probably how people make sense. And that might help us to really understand how our clients make sense. And not just how our clients make sense, but also how we may make sense as coaches. So being so important to understand that change is nonlinear. And the Gestalt laws, law number 1 is about figure and ground, which is exactly what you experienced in the images. So our mind tends to separate the figure from the background very easily. The second law, the law of similarity. So there is a tendency that the mind groups up things which are similar, whether it's color, whether it's shape, whether it's size, and that's how perception is formed. The next one, the law of proximity. So you'll see whatever is together, the mind tends to group it up. And you will see the minute the circles were spread apart, the mind groups it up in a different way. So proximity being another key law. The next one being closure. The mind having the tendency, even though there is no real closure, the mind wants to see it as a complete whole. So the mind tends to close it and see the triangle, even though there is no triangle here. And the final law is the law of continuity. The mind tending to follow a certain pattern or a certain level of objectives that you can see. Until the pattern is interrupted, it tends to continue to follow this. So this is the Gestalt law. And I'm just wondering, as we are aware that this is how we make sense, and this is how we are thinking, what makes this important in our coaching space? Any thoughts?
We can jump to sometimes conclusions because of the way our brains make connections.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of perception that is formed. And yes, the beauty of this is where we are able to look at the different parts and explore the parts with our clients. Because we know that there is a perception that is already created, and it could be a past experience that's bringing that perception. And we want to explore with our clients what are the parts that are around this construct that the whole person is experiencing right now. So what comes to my mind is maybe an image of Lego. So we know that the concept of Gestalt gives us that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. As coaches, I think like Mick said, for us to really tune ourselves to notice the parts, to really start to see the parts separately, and to invite our clients to look at the parts and learn from those parts. So 2 things for us as coaches. 1, to be able to notice and see the parts. And the second thing, for us to be able to invite our clients to look at the parts and learn from them. So these parts, I'm sure in our CMA framework, we talk about the expression of desire, we have the values, the beliefs, the assumptions. So as coaches, the more we kind of understand the science that goes behind the change process, it helps us to look at the parts, notice the parts, and present the parts to our clients for them to explore and learn from them. And maybe some of those patterns that we saw in the Gestalt law, we will really start creating new awareness, recognizing maybe some blind spots in that exploration as we look at the parts separately. Now, isn't that a beautiful place where we have the choice and the choice to really construct what we really want to build. And when I say construct what we want to build, I think it gives our coaches, our clients, the agility. In other words, they've looked at the parts and created learning agility for themselves. And now they're able to, not just in that moment, but use the knowledge and awareness that they have created about that part as they walk out into any similar situation. So here, for us to hold that space, like Mick said, and like Mariam has shared with empathy, for us to be able to put the parts on the table, let our clients actually, or invite our clients to see it, and really to do that with empathy, to do that with care, to do that with trust. So yes, there is that science and the art that comes into that space. So with that, I'm going to just let Azadeh also come in and share a little bit here.
Thank you so much, Andrea. So I just want to apologize that my connection is also not so great. Let me know if I'm breaking. And thank you, Ben, for connecting. So this is our appreciation, and the reason why we're bringing the science today is that I think all of us who've been through the training, we just keep hearing this bullet, 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 keep it concise, less than 10 words. What are the main elements? What are the parts? Those of you who go to advanced are stretched further. Okay, so we had the goal, we had the concern, we had challenge, problem, real issue, and core level, but now where is the who aspect? What about the person in front of you? What are their needs? What is their perception? What is their desire? What is their assumption or belief? So we are stretched to pick out even more parts. And what makes that important is that I think what I appreciate most about our framework is that it supports us to become skilled observers. As a coach, we see that we are also not, how can we call it, immune to falling into the trap of building our own perception, right? Because we said it in core training as well. We see what we see is what we create, and we create what we see. So as coaches, we have to basically push ourselves to be able to really see objectively what is on the table. And what we are appreciating today about the science is that it gives us a framework through which we are able to pick out what is our client actually saying in the midst of the narration that they are presenting in front of us. They are sharing with us their life story. And from that life story, we have to be able to, as coaches, present to them, these are the main parts that I'm hearing. Now that you're able to see those, share with me. What does this mean for you? How is this making sense to you? And it's so interesting, right? That once we are able to see parts of things in front of us, all of a sudden, something happens. And that is creativity that emerges. So one reason why we brought the Lego building blocks is one Lego construct more beautiful than another? Those of you who have kids and your kids make a Lego construct, isn't it sometimes painful to break them? Because you're like, oh, I'd love to keep this. You did so well. And then they break it and they make another one. You're like, wow, I love this one as well. So we've gotten in the habits of taking picture shots instead, because not one is maybe better than the other. However, it gives us the possibility to create something new once we know what the parts are. And what's really amazing about the change process is that through becoming observers, so when we are supporting our clients to become observers of their operating system, what is their belief? What is their perception they're holding? What is their need? What is their want? They are able to know themselves better. And by getting to know themselves better, once they face a similar situation, they can now choose. Well, how is it that I would like to bring this interplay together? What is it that I want to create new for myself? And this is what makes us human beings so amazing, is that we have the capacity to learn. And this is what is actually signifies resilience, that we are able to take what is there, learn from it, and adapt new in a new setting. So what I appreciate about coaching is that, yes, it truly works when we're able to see these parts. And not only are we as coaches supporting others to be able to see their operating systems, we are also learning the skill for ourselves to be able to see how our operating system works, how we make sense of things. And of course, as coaches, we are inclined, and I guess we are in terms of, giving ourselves into this service. I think this raises for us the initiative to want to learn more about the human being so that we're able to objectively put these parts together. So now we're going to present to you one more model, and you'll think, why are you bringing these models to the table? But it's not about the model. It's about the human being. So we'd like for you to zoom out with us like a helicopter. So let's say we zoomed and we saw what all are the parts that are in a human being: needs, wants, perceptions, beliefs, assumptions, right? But if we take a higher picture, we see that the human being is much more than just what is happening on the psychological level that we're dealing with the mind. There are two more aspects as well that are also very, very impactful in the change process. One of them being the biological and the other the sociological. So this model by George Engel was created in 1977, and it came through the reflection that actually, on the perspective of health and disease, it does not make sense, was George Engel's point of view, that it doesn't make sense to only look at the physiology, the biology. There are also two other components impacting the biology with this, which is the psychology and the sociology. Now, what makes that important for us to want to also keep that in mind and see how that plays a role in the coaching spectrum is that we can use the same model for human development. As in, would you all agree that when we have a change that is going to be put in place, this change has to be created in a context of where this person is living, let's say the environment, and also in the context of their body, right? So this consciousness that's being created in the mind, the awareness that's being created in the mind, is also connected and has interrelations to the biology and the sociology. Now, I want to share with you that this is a personal experience. As I was, thinking to myself towards the beginning, from the beginning of my coaching journey, that why is it that sometimes my clients, we get to some point in the conversation, and especially, let's say they get to some awareness and some understanding, and all of a sudden the topic is about something else, and they say, yes, I need to learn how to say no. And when we are talking about, let's say, how will you hold yourself accountable? What are some actions you will put in place? They say something like, meditation will help me, or they will say something like, a breathing exercise could be useful, or taking some time on my own, maybe exercising. And I was thinking, what is the connection here? And that's exactly the point. What is the connection here for the client? So what we want to actually kind of, share an appreciation for and touch the surface on is to say that the human being has a whole network or system that they put in place to make change happen, a whole process. And we as facilitators of change have to want to be able to be curious and learn more and know more about how this system works in order to support our client. So that we can, when we get to the point where our client is sharing with us about let's say, yeah, breathing could be useful. Well, share with me what makes that useful for you, and what difference will that breathing bring to you. So this is where we can see that designing action is no longer about designing action. It's about creating a sustainable process, change process, to make the change come fully alive. So we just want to pause there for a moment and bounce back reflections with you. And actually, I want to use this moment because I followed one of Lena's coaching demonstrations this week. And I just want to point out that there was one beautiful moment where Lena invited her client to place her hand on her heart center and to take a moment and breathe and to share what is really coming up for her. And I just want to share, have Lena share with us, now looking at this biopsychosocial model that sounds so complicated, how would you share what came up for you at that moment, Lena?
Hi, Azadeh. Thank you so much for such a great learning today. So many things to learn. So what came to my mind is that I felt that the client at that time was not feeling her whole, her inside. And I felt that there's something blocking herself from connecting herself to her inner. So at that moment, when I asked her to just look at this picture, I wanted her to really connect with her inner side. And I wanted really her to feel alive, that while your heart is still beating, and as long as your heart is beating, there's always a change, there's always a new beginning, there's always a new day. So that was what was happening in the back of my mind. I really wanted her to feel connected to her heart, to her soul, to her inner. So yeah, and I think feeling the heartbeats is the biggest gift that we can have on a daily basis, just to feel those heartbeats, that we are alive. So the change is there. Thank you, Azadeh.
Thank you, Lena. And I'm always so amazed, following Ben for over 4 years now. He feels the heartbeat of his clients, and sometimes he pauses them and says, wait a minute. And I was thinking at that time, I was like, how's that even possible? Feeling your own heartbeat, okay, but feeling someone else's heartbeat. But that is how the coach is seeing beyond the words, the whole of the person in front of them. And this is what is fascinating, what is really amazing about how transformative coaching can be a platform where the client is able to fully see themselves by having a mirror in front of them who's able to who is able to really show them beyond what they're saying, right? Would you agree that oftentimes our clients are saying something, but they're not really aware of exactly how they're experiencing in the moment? And when the coach is able to really put that in front of the client, that is where they can see the full picture and tap into their resourcefulness. Thank you so much, Ben. That is amazing. And if you would like to come in, Ben, and share with us, we need to open our heart to touch it. Indeed. So basically, what we're, go ahead, Lena. Did you want to share something? No.
I'm reading what Ben just wrote. Our world is filled with life. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Indeed. So our invitation is that, when I started at the core level, I was just trying to listen so hard, to what is going on here. What's the situation? What does my client want? What outcome are we getting to? And slowly through the coach training, what I'm really appreciative of is as if, I'm pulled higher and higher and higher, and yet deeper and more deeply connected to the client to be able to see more of what is on the table rather than not just the content that's being brought. So anybody else would like to share something before we wrap things up for today? What is coming up for you so far? Irene, We'd love to
Hey,
hear from you.
thank you very much, Andrea and Azadi, for this very stimulating topic. You know, throughout the course of this week, as I attended the different sessions, I have just been reflecting on the essence of wholesomeness, both for me as a coach and also being able to see or facilitate wholesomeness for my client. And what you bring into book today tells me that in thinking about wholesomeness, I need to be able to recognize the different parts that comes into that whole. And there's the significant role each of those parts play in the wholesomeness. And I look at myself as a human. I'm spirit, soul, and body. And if I can connect the three together in a wholesome way, I will not be the best of who I am. And if I recognize that for myself and I look at the sociology and psychology and physiology, which as my primary training I had to go through as a nutrition scientist in those days, everything seems to be coming together now. It's connecting all the dots for me. Why my lecturers in those days insisted that I must take sociology and take psychology, even though I was a scientist, in order to be able to address a human being. And so I bring that again into coaching. All the significant parts that ensures wholesomeness. And honestly, it is a aha moment for me. And I want to thank both of you for this final piece of the puzzle that you dropped in for this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene, for this beautiful, the way you have put everything together, and with your beautiful experience where you are incorporating these different fields of knowledge together. And actually, who we really want to thank and where we're really eager is for Ben's book to come out. For this is really what the ACC framework is built on. And the more we're able to appreciate these components, the more we're able to actually use them in the process of facilitating change. So I don't think that this is anything new for all of you. This is just a summary of what we're putting on the table today. And it's our deepest appreciation to have this framework, which supports us through the being able to make observations to reflect back the parts, through concise bulleting, expansion of the mind to allow for the client to be able to see what is behind these parts, and perhaps be able to see what are the interrelations, are there any? What new interrelations, as Andrea said, that the Gestalt theory prompts us to put things together in similar, that are closely related or similar. But when the coach is able to put them as parts in front, all of a sudden you can make new meaning. Something that you never thought was connected can come together in a new way. So again, listening to the whole person, supporting the client to gain heightened awareness of interrelations. And for me, I don't know, I have different phases where I started off in the 2 first webinars. I was like evoking awareness. Of course, all of these steps of the ACC, if we don't have them, they're not steps, right? All of these phases are important because we can't create one without the other, right? But my appreciation right now is also going for the one that I'm not taking care of the most. I'm a mom and I know I need to take care equally of all my kids, but like designing accountability, that's where from my mentor, Ben, I received you're not taking long enough for your accountability. And how important is it? How important is it to integrate the learning for the client so that they're able to understand what is behind you taking this action? And when you say, for example, that you need to have this support system from someone, what difference will that bring for you? And how would you like them to support you? What is it that you would like them to support you with? that is how we can see that this is actually building the sustainability of the change process. So my deep appreciation for this. So we'd like to wrap off with another video that we'd like to share with you.
I would like to make you an omelette. Would you be interested? But I need your help to break the eggs.
Oh. Well, it didn't. You have it.
I think so. There is a lot that Ben has shared on the chat as well. And something that comes to my mind in the training, Ben shares with us that coaching and that whole emergence in the moment is like cooking. And Azadeh and I, we actually very intentionally looked to find the most appropriate thing to really bring what comes up in the partnership in that space of emergence through cooking. And I am so grateful that we actually were able to share this with all of you. And with that, Azadeh, do we kind of ask for takeaways here? Maybe I'll just share one final thought for me. And I think at a time when everything outside around us is so uncertain, the gift that we can give all of ourselves, our clients, is awareness. And that's what I feel that coaching really brings that whole person into the space. And when we are able to really hold space for new awareness that can be created for our clients, I think it is that awareness alone that helps us to really face anything that comes in front of us. So like Azadeh said, the resilience, the agility to face any situation. And I'm kind of connecting to what's happening in Sri Lanka constantly. Every day we're kind of tested for our agility. So right now I have like about 3 backups in terms of power, just to ensure that, you know, I'm all good in the session. So yeah, I think really taking back that we can only get to know ourselves more and people around us more, because humanity and the humanness is what really we need in the world out there. So that's my final message to everyone. And with that, I'm just going to pass it on to Azadeh.
I think we have spoken enough. We'd love to hear from you, but my last thing I'd like to say is, yeah, my curiosity and wonder to want to know more about the human being, and deepest appreciation really for this craft and for Ben for creating this framework that allows us to see more of a human being. So thank you, everyone. Please share with us what you're taking away.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andy and Azadeh, for this lovely session, because it seems a difficult concept to communicate, but the way that you both communicated the word wholeness was so beautiful. Thank you for that. And my takeaway is, as Andy also said, like in personal lives as well as communities, we go, you know, rough and tough times all the time. And this is a great message that you brought in, as possibility to break and make, as you all said. And that Lego example is a really appropriate example. I was just thinking like how appropriately that is been built into our framework, CMA, ACC, where as we appreciate science all the time and our empirical approach around that. So today, I think this is a great session where that we all see that how this wholeness is connected to our coaching process. So it's great learning for me. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for your sharing as well. Back to you, Andy, Azadeh.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I think I saw Mick with your hand raised. Do you want to share, Mick? And I'm going to pass on to Mariam for you to kind of hold the space from here.
Yeah, I have a feeling mine won't be short, but I'll try and summarize it. Basically, what I can say is mind expanded and curiosity peaked, and it's got me thinking so many things. And I'm thinking about this. Okay, we want to see the whole of the person. We've already been talking about that. Now I'm wanting to see the whole of the person in the whole of their situation, and not to get into content. That's not what I'm talking about here. But now in the breaking down of the parts and with the Gestalt, to start looking at that connection over to the biological. I'll start with that one. So we spend so much time talking about the psychology of this, but there's the biological element of things like the endocrine system, that when someone is feeling something, it's actually triggered by hormones. Yes, we think about the psychology of it, but there is also the endocrine system that's kicking in right there. There's the nervous system. Why does someone get a bad feeling in their gut? It's the nervous system. We're a biological being as much as we are a psychological being. And then the sociological part is to then look at the environment around us and how impactful, once again, the nervous system and even things like pheromones and all of these things, that we don't exist as a human being that doesn't connect to other human beings or even other animals and other things around us. And it's just got my mind triggering every time Azadeh smiles. I can't help but smile. And that's got nothing to do with psychology. There's something there, right? So and things like with pheromones, and when a dog is going to attack, and the fact that a pheromone can actually get a dog to calm down, through to, sorry to this is a little bit off, apologize, but things like women that live in the same house, their menstrual cycles end up kind of synchronizing. So it's got me thinking that those three, you could have done your entire presentation with those three bubbles of the psychology, the biology, and the sociology, and that would have been enough for me. It's got me off reading for the rest of the next month to study further. Thank you so much. That was just amazing.
Thank you, Mick, for sharing. And I'm glad you didn't make it short. It's really nice to hear someone's entire thought process. I know we've reached the end of time, but does anyone have anything else they'd like to share before we close? See a few horizontal nods. Okay, Azadeh, Andy, thank you so much. And I really want to echo the sentiments of everyone that shared. It was really useful, and I think it really solidified, even for me, Gestalt theory. And like we said in the beginning, how complex we are and how we need to think more complex rather than just linearly, which sometimes is tempting to do. So thank you so much for sharing. And thank you, Ben, for all your comments. I really like the comment you put on the chat saying that you're only one step away from change, and that we all the faculty at CMA inspire change. And I 100% agree with that and have witnessed that firsthand. So thank you. And thank you everyone for joining, for your time and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you for your host.